The gathering storm, the intergalactic security assembly chamber stretched 500 meters in diameter, its walls constructed from living crystal that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Today those patterns flickered red and amber, reflecting the anxiety rippling through the assembled delegates. Representatives from 73 different species occupied their designated platforms, each suspended at different heights according to their world's gravitational preferences. The air itself was carefully calibrated, sectioned into invisible zones that provided appropriate atmospheres for beings who breathed everything from methane to pure hydrogen. At the chamber's center, a massive holographic display showed the current crisis unfolding in Sector 447. The Chthon Empire, a militaristic civilization that had conquered 14 star systems in the past century, had issued its ultimatum 6 hours ago. 3 human colony worlds in the Outer Rim had exactly 24 hours to surrender their territories and accept Chthon governance, or face total annihilation. The hologram displayed the Chthon battle fleet in all its terrible glory. 2,200 warships arranged in perfect formation, advancing steadily toward human space. Ambassador Rebecca Stone stood on the human platform, a simple circular disc that floated near the chamber's lower levels. She was 52 years old, with silver threading through her dark hair and eyes that had seen too many diplomatic failures. Her gray suit looked almost comically plain compared to the elaborate ceremonial garments worn by other delegates. But Rebecca had learned long ago that humans were not here to impress anyone with their appearance. They were here because they had something to offer, perspective from a species that had nearly destroyed itself before learning to survive. The Vryn coordinator, a massive serpentine being whose species had founded the assembly 4,000 years ago, spoke with a voice that resonated through multiple dimensions. The translated words appeared in each delegate's mind rather than their ears. The projections are clear. The Chthon fleet will reach human colonies in approximately 7 hours. The human defense force consists of 180 vessels. The Chthon armada numbers 2,200. The mathematical outcome is inevitable. Rebecca listened without interrupting. She had heard these calculations a dozen times already. Every military analyst in the assembly had run the numbers. Every strategic AI had processed the scenarios. The conclusion was always the same. Humanity would lose, and they would lose quickly. The only variable was how many human lives would be sacrificed before the inevitable surrender. A delegate from the Carthex Dominion, a species resembling crystalline spiders, clicked its mandibles in a pattern that translated to speech. Perhaps the humans should consider the Chthon offer. Client species status is preferable to extinction. The Chthon are not known for accepting surrender once hostilities begin. This may be humanity's final opportunity to preserve their civilization. Rebecca finally spoke, her voice calm and measured. She had learned to control her emotions during diplomatic sessions, to present the image of quiet confidence that humans had cultivated since joining Galactic Society 150 years ago. We appreciate the concern of the Assembly. However, humanity requests 24 hours to formulate our response to the Chthon ultimatum. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of alien voices, translated simultaneously into dozens of languages. The general consensus was clear. What possible difference could 24 hours make? The Chthon would not negotiate. Their pattern of conquest was well documented. They made an offer once, then they destroyed everything that refused to submit. Delay would only result in more human casualties. The Torvan ambassador, a being composed of living light energy, spoke with genuine sympathy in its modulated tones. Humanity is valued within this assembly. Your contributions to cultural exchange and scientific cooperation have been appreciated, but sentiment cannot alter strategic reality. The Chthon Empire has conquered species far older and more technologically advanced than your own. There is no shame in acknowledging an unwinnable conflict. Rebecca nodded slowly, acknowledging the Torvan's kindness. Then she said something that made every delegate pause. What if I told you that humanity has never lost a war we truly committed to winning? The Vryn coordinator's massive head tilted, serpentine eyes focusing on the small human with renewed interest. Humanity has been a spacefaring species for only 150 years. Your military history before achieving faster than light travel is well documented. You fought among yourselves for thousands of years, yes, but you have no experience with interstellar warfare on this scale. Rebecca smiled, but there was something in that smile that made several nearby delegates uncomfortable. It was the smile of someone holding cards they had not yet revealed. That is precisely my point, Coordinator. We fought among ourselves for thousands of years. We became very, very good at warfare. Then we stopped, but we never forgot how. The holographic display shifted, now showing detailed analysis of human military capabilities. The numbers were unimpressive by galactic standards. Human ships were smaller than most species' vessels, less heavily armed, with shield technology that was at least a generation behind the galactic average. Human energy weapons were efficient but not particularly powerful. Their missile systems were adequate but conventional. By every measurable metric, humanity should not have posed a significant challenge to any established military power. Yet something about Rebecca's demeanor suggested she was not concerned. She stood on her platform with the posture of someone who knew something the rest of the assembly did not. And that confidence was starting to worry some of the more perceptive delegates. The Crethon ambassador, a massive being covered in metallic scales that reflected light in harsh angles, spoke for the first time during the session. His voice carried the arrogance of a species accustomed to victory. The human speaks of commitment and capability. Words are irrelevant. Actions define reality. Humanity will surrender within 8 hours of our fleet's arrival, or they will be destroyed. There is no third option. The Crethon Empire does not negotiate with those who refuse our generous offer of protection. Rebecca turned to face the Crethon ambassador directly. Her expression remained neutral, but her words carried an edge that had not been there before. Ambassador, your empire has conquered 14 systems in the past century. You have destroyed the military forces of species that were far older than humanity. You have every reason to be confident, but I would like to share something with you. And with this entire assembly, she activated her personal data pad, and the central holographic display changed. Instead of fleet positions and tactical projections, the display now showed images from Earth's history. Ancient battles fought with primitive weapons. Cities destroyed by chemical and nuclear weapons. Entire continents devastated by conflicts that predated spaceflight by centuries. The images were brutal, unflinching documentation of humanity's violent past. Rebecca's voice remained steady as she narrated. This is what we were. For 10,000 years, we perfected the science of killing each other. We developed weapons that could sterilize continents. We created diseases that could wipe out populations. We built machines that could crack open planets and weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. And we used all of them against each other repeatedly, for millennia. The assembly chamber had fallen completely silent. Many delegates had known that humanity had a violent history, but few had understood the true scope of that violence. The images continued. Massive explosions, devastated landscapes, endless rows of casualties from wars that had killed millions. Then we stopped. Rebecca continued. 193 years ago, humanity achieved global unity. We looked at what we had done to ourselves, at the weapons we had created, at the destruction we were capable of, and we made a choice. We chose peace. We chose cooperation. We chose to be better than our history. She paused, letting her words sink in before delivering the critical point. But we never forgot what we learned during those thousands of years of warfare. We never destroyed that knowledge. We simply locked it away, hoping we would never need it again. The Crethon Empire has just given us a reason to remember. The Vryn coordinator leaned forward, its massive form dominating the chamber's center. Are you suggesting that humanity possesses weapons beyond what you have revealed to the assembly? That would constitute a severe violation of the transparency accords that all member species have signed. Rebecca met the coordinator's multidimensional gaze without flinching. We have violated no accords, Coordinator. The transparency accords require disclosure of active military systems and deployment-ready weaponry. What we possess has not been active for nearly 2 centuries. It has been locked away, studied, maintained, but never deployed. We hoped we would never need to activate these systems again. The implications of her words sent waves of concern through the assembly. If humanity possessed ancient weapons technology from their pre-spaceflight era when they were apparently far more aggressive and creative about warfare, what capabilities might they have hidden away? The Carthex Dominion delegate clicked urgently. The transparency accords exist for the protection of all species. If humanity has concealed weapons capabilities, this assembly must be informed immediately. What exactly are you suggesting you possess? Rebecca looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. Her expression was serious, almost sad. We call it the Strategic Defense Initiative. When humanity unified and joined the galactic community, we made a decision. We took every weapon system that we deemed too dangerous, too destructive, or too morally questionable, and we locked them in a vault, not destroyed, preserved, because we understood that the universe might not be as peaceful as we hoped it would be. She activated another display, this one showing a series of coordinates across human-controlled space. The SDI facilities are located on 7 different worlds. They contain weapons and defense systems that we developed during our most desperate period. Some of these systems exploit physics in ways that the Assembly's scientific community would consider impossible. Others target vulnerabilities that most spacefaring species have never needed to consider, because they never fought the kinds of wars we fought against ourselves. The Crethon ambassador laughed, a harsh metallic sound that grated against multiple species' hearing ranges. Primitive weapons from a pre-spaceflight civilization. You threaten the Crethon Empire with ancient technology. Our sensors have analyzed your colonies. We have detailed intelligence on your military capabilities. There are no secret superweapons. There are only obsolete ships and inadequate defenses. Rebecca's smile returned, and this time several delegates recognized it for what it was. The smile of a predator that had been underestimated. Ambassador, your intelligence is absolutely correct about our conventional military. Our ships are exactly as capable as your sensors indicate. Our colonies are exactly as defended as your analysts believe. But the SDI was never designed to be detected by conventional scanning. It exists on a completely different technological paradigm. Admiral Marcus, Chen sat in the Strategic Command Center buried 3 kilometers beneath the surface of Earth. The command center was a relic from humanity's more paranoid era, built during a time when planetary invasion seemed like a genuine possibility. Now it served as the hub for humanity's defense network, coordinating the activities of 180 ships scattered across 3 parsecs of space. The admiral was 68 years old, a veteran who had served in the Unified Earth Defense Forces for 46 years. He had never commanded a ship in actual combat. His entire career had been during humanity's peaceful period, managing logistics and training exercises. Now he faced the most critical decision in human history since the unification, whether to activate systems that had been sealed for nearly 2 centuries. The main display showed the Crethon fleet's approach vector, 2,200 warships moving in perfect formation, like a swarm of metallic locusts advancing to consume everything in their path. Earth's defense network tracked them with crystalline precision, calculating trajectories, analyzing shield frequencies, monitoring power signatures. All the data confirmed what everyone already knew. Humanity's conventional forces could not stop this armada. Admiral Chen's communications officer approached his station. Sir, we have received the final authorization codes from Ambassador Stone. The SDI protocols are unlocked and awaiting your command. All 7 facilities report ready status. Marcus studied the authorization codes on his personal display. 7 sequences, each one required to activate a different facility. Each facility contained weapon systems that represented humanity's darkest innovations, created during a time when survival meant being willing to do anything, use anything, sacrifice anything to win. He thought about the 3 colony worlds in the Crethon's path: New Shanghai, with its 3 million inhabitants, Harmony Station, home to 1.7 million colonists, and Prometheus Base, the smallest colony with only 800,000 residents. 5 million human lives hung in the balance. 5 million people who were counting on him to protect them from an enemy that every military analyst said was unstoppable. Marcus activated his command console and began entering the first authorization code. The system responded immediately, centuries-old protocols coming to life with perfect efficiency. On 7 different worlds, vault doors that had been sealed for 193 years began to open. Inside those vaults, weapon systems that should never have been built powered up for the first time in nearly 2 centuries. The Strategic Defense Initiative had a simple operational philosophy. If humanity ever faced an existential threat, they would respond with technologies that the rest of the galaxy could not defend against, because the rest of the galaxy had never imagined such weapons were possible. Humanity had learned warfare in the most brutal school imaginable, fighting themselves for survival across thousands of years. They had explored every possible method of destruction, every vulnerability in biology and physics and consciousness itself. And now, for the first time since joining galactic civilization, humanity was about to show the universe what they were truly capable of when they stopped pretending to be peaceful. Admiral Chen entered the 7th and final authorization code. The command network acknowledged receipt and began the automated deployment sequence. He opened a communication channel to all human defense forces. All ships, this is strategic command. Maintain defensive positions. Do not engage the Crethon fleet under any circumstances. Do not fire weapons, do not approach their vessels, do not initiate any hostile action. The SDI will handle this situation. His tactical officer looked confused. Sir, the SDI facilities are activating, but I'm not detecting any weapon launches. No missiles, no energy signatures, nothing deploying from the vaults. The systems are powering up, but they're not doing anything visible. Marcus nodded slowly. That is correct, Lieutenant. The SDI does not work like conventional weapons. You will not see missiles or beams or explosions. The Crethon fleet will simply stop working. The tactical officer's confusion deepened, but before he could ask for clarification, new data began flooding into the command center's systems. The 7 SDI facilities were transmitting something into space, but it was not anything that resembled traditional weapons fire. Instead, it was information. Streams of quantum-encoded data broadcasting on frequencies that should not exist according to standard physics. The broadcast reached the Crethon fleet 6 minutes after activation, and in that moment everything changed. The silence that shattered empires, the Crethon battle fleet moved through space with the confidence of a predator that had never known defeat. 2,200 warships maintained perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the distinctive metallic sheen that marked Crethon military vessels. Each ship was a masterpiece of destructive engineering, bristling with weapon systems that could glass a planet's surface in hours. The fleet's commander, Supreme Admiral Corvin, watched from his flagship's bridge as his armada approached the boundary of human territory. Corvin was a decorated warrior who had personally overseen the conquest of 8 different star systems. His tactical record was flawless. His reputation for brutality was legendary. He studied the tactical display showing the pathetic human defense force. 180 ships scattered in defensive positions around 3 colony worlds. The humans were not even attempting to mount an offensive. They simply waited, like prey animals frozen in fear before an approaching predator. The Supreme Admiral allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. This would be quick. The humans would realize their hopelessness within the first hour of engagement. They would surrender, accept client species status, and the Crethon Empire would expand by 3 more worlds. Simple, efficient, inevitable. He opened a communication channel to his entire fleet. All vessels prepare for combat operations. Target priority: military installations and defense platforms. Secondary targets: communication hubs and power generation facilities. We will demonstrate overwhelming force until their leadership surrenders. The response from 2,200 captains came back instantaneously, each voice confirming readiness, each ship reporting weapons armed and shields at maximum. The Crethon fleet was a single unified weapon aimed at humanity's heart. Nothing could stop what was about to happen. Corvin had seen this scenario play out too many times to doubt the outcome. Then, exactly 6 minutes after the Human Strategic Defense Initiative activated, something impossible occurred. The communication channel went silent, not filled with static, not disrupted by interference, simply silent. Complete, absolute absence of signal. Corvin frowned and checked his communication systems. According to every diagnostic, the equipment was functioning perfectly. Power was flowing correctly. Transmitters were operating within normal parameters. Yet nothing was transmitting. Nothing was receiving. The flagship was completely isolated in a bubble of perfect silence. On the bridge, his communication officers worked frantically at their stations, their scaled fingers moving rapidly across crystalline controls. The head communication officer turned to face Corvin, confusion evident in her posture. Supreme Admiral, all communication systems are reporting operational status, but we are unable to transmit or receive on any frequency. Quantum entanglement communicators, electromagnetic channels, gravitational wave transmitters, all showing the same result. The equipment functions, but nothing we send reaches beyond our hull. Before Corvin could respond, his weapons officer spoke up. and there was an edge of panic in his voice that was distinctly unmilitary. "Admiral, weapon systems are offline. All of them. Energy cannons, missile launchers, particle beams, everything is showing operational status, but refusing targeting solutions. The systems accept commands but will not execute firing sequences." Corvin felt the first stirring of genuine concern. One system failing could be a malfunction. Two systems failing simultaneously suggested enemy action. But what kind of weapon could disable both communications and weapons without damaging the equipment itself? He strode to the engineering station and demanded a full status report. The chief engineer's expression told him the news would not be good. "All ship systems are registering as functional, Admiral. Power generation is normal. Life support is operational. Structural integrity is intact. But propulsion, weapons, communications, and shields are all experiencing the same phenomenon. They respond to commands. They show no errors or malfunctions, but they will not execute their intended functions. It is as if the ship remembers what it is supposed to do but has forgotten how to do it." Across the entire Crethon fleet, this same scene was repeating itself on 2,200 bridges. Commanders discovering that their ships had become elaborate tombs, still powered, still life-supporting but completely unable to perform any military function. The fleet that had been poised to crush humanity now drifted in space like a collection of metal sculptures. Beautiful, but utterly useless. At the Intergalactic Security Assembly, delegates watched the tactical display with growing shock. The Crethon fleet had stopped moving. All 2,200 vessels hung motionless in space, exactly at the boundary of human territory. The human defense fleet remained in their defensive positions, weapons powered down, making no aggressive moves whatsoever. Yet somehow, impossibly, the Crethon armada had been neutralized. The Vryn coordinator spoke with urgency in its translated voice. "What has happened? Our sensors show no weapons fire, no energy discharges, no physical contact between human and Crethon vessels. Yet the entire Crethon fleet has ceased all military operations. Explain this, Ambassador Stone." Rebecca stood on her platform with the same calm expression she had maintained throughout the crisis. "What you are witnessing, Coordinator, is the Strategic Defense Initiative in action. Humanity has not fired a single weapon. We have not destroyed a single Crethon ship. We have simply made warfare impossible within the operational zone." The Carthex Dominion delegate clicked in agitation. "This is impossible. Our sensors would detect any form of electromagnetic pulse, any gravitational disruption, any quantum interference field. There is nothing. The space between the human fleet and the Crethon armada is completely empty. How can you disable an entire fleet without deploying any visible weapon?" Rebecca activated her datapad again, and the central holographic display changed to show a simplified diagram. "During humanity's pre-spaceflight era, we developed something we called quantum suppression technology. The basic principle is simple, though the execution requires physics that most species have not explored. We learned how to broadcast quantum-level interference patterns that target the fundamental decision-making processes in electronic systems." She paused, letting the delegates absorb this information before continuing. "Every computer, every artificial intelligence, every automated system makes decisions based on quantum processes at the subatomic level. Electrons flow through circuits. Quantum states collapse into definite values. These are the fundamental operations that allow technology to function. The SDI broadcasts a pattern that interferes with these quantum collapse events. It does not damage the equipment. It does not drain power. It simply prevents quantum states from resolving into the values necessary for the equipment to execute commands." The Torvan ambassador, its light energy form flickering with agitation, spoke with disbelief resonating through its translated words. "You are describing an impossibility. The quantum uncertainty principle protects against such manipulation. Heisenberg's constraints should make what you are describing mathematically unachievable. No species in galactic history has successfully weaponized quantum interference at this scale." Rebecca nodded in acknowledgement. "You are absolutely correct, Ambassador. It should be impossible. Under normal physics, under the understanding of quantum mechanics that guides galactic technology, what we are doing cannot work. But humanity spent thousands of years fighting wars where impossible was simply a challenge to overcome. We explored aspects of quantum mechanics that peaceful species never needed to investigate. We asked questions that should not have answers, and we found those answers anyway. The Crethon ambassador, who had been silent since his fleet's mysterious shutdown, finally spoke. His voice carried rage and humiliation. "This is a violation of every warfare convention in galactic history. You have used forbidden physics. You have deployed weapons that should not exist. The Crethon Empire will file formal protests. This assembly must condemn humanity's actions." Rebecca turned to face him directly, and her expression had hardened. "Ambassador, your empire entered human territory with an invasion fleet. You threatened to bombard civilian population centers. You gave us a choice between slavery and extermination. We chose a third option. We defended ourselves without killing a single member of your species. Every Crethon ship in that fleet is intact. Every crew member is alive and unharmed. Life support is functioning perfectly. Your people are simply sitting in expensive metal boxes that no longer work as weapons." She let that sink in before continuing. "The SDI can be deactivated as easily as it was activated. The moment your fleet withdraws from human territory and your empire signs a formal non-aggression treaty, we will restore your ship's functionality. You will be able to fly home. You will be able to tell your leaders what happened here, and you will be able to explain that humanity defended itself using a weapon that does not kill, does not destroy, simply makes war impossible." Admiral Chen watched from Strategic Command as the Crethon fleet remained frozen in space. The quantum suppression field was functioning exactly as designed, exactly as it had during the classified tests humanity had conducted in deep space over the past century. The technology was a perfect representation of humanity's philosophy about warfare. The best way to win a fight was to make fighting impossible. His communication officer reported new incoming data. "Sir, we are receiving distress signals from the Crethon flagship. They are requesting permission to communicate with their homeworld. Their long-range quantum communicators are just as disabled as their weapon systems. They want to inform their government of their situation but cannot do so without our assistance." Marcus considered this request carefully. The Crethon were learning an important lesson right now. They were learning what it meant to be completely helpless, completely dependent on the mercy of an enemy they had underestimated. It was a lesson that would reshape their understanding of humanity and, hopefully, make them reconsider their empire's aggressive expansion policies. Admiral Chen made his decision. Grant their request. Establish a communication relay between the Crethon flagship and their homeworld. Let them explain their situation. Let their leaders understand what has happened here. The communication link was established within minutes. Supreme Admiral Corvin spoke with his government, and the conversation was brief and humiliating. The Crethon leadership demanded explanations. How had an entire battle fleet been neutralized without suffering a single casualty? What kind of weapon could disable every system on every ship simultaneously? And most importantly, how could they extract their fleet from this situation without suffering complete strategic defeat? Corvin explained everything he knew, which was very little. The humans had deployed some kind of quantum-based weapon that prevented ships from functioning while leaving crews unharmed. The weapon showed no visible signature, could not be detected by conventional sensors, and apparently had a range that covered entire star systems. The only way to escape its effect was to withdraw from human territory and agree to never return. The conversation between Corvin and his superiors lasted 3 hours. During that time, the entire galaxy watched and listened as the Crethon Empire grappled with its first true military defeat in a century. Other aggressive species, empires that had been considering their own expansion plans, paid very close attention. If the Crethon could be stopped this easily, what chance did anyone else have against humanity's hidden weapons? Finally, the Crethon government made their decision. They would withdraw. They would sign whatever treaty humanity demanded. They would accept the humiliation of defeat without even having the dignity of a battle to blame it on. Supreme Admiral Corvin received his orders with visible shame, then transmitted his surrender to Admiral Chen on Earth. At the Intergalactic Security Assembly, Rebecca Stone received confirmation of the Crethon withdrawal. She turned to address the assembled delegates, many of whom were still processing what they had witnessed. The Crethon Empire has agreed to withdraw from human territory. They will sign a non-aggression treaty that prohibits any military action against human interests for the next century. In return, humanity will deactivate the quantum suppression field and allow their fleet to return home. The Vrin coordinator spoke, and for the first time in its long life, Its voice carried genuine fear. Ambassador Stone, the Strategic Defense Initiative, represents a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics. If humanity possesses weapons that can neutralize military forces without destruction, then conventional warfare becomes meaningless. The balance of power that has maintained galactic peace for millennia has just been shattered. What are humanity's intentions? Rebecca had prepared for this question. She had known it would come eventually. Though she had hoped to have more time before answering it, she took a breath and spoke with absolute sincerity. Humanity's intentions are exactly what they have always been, Coordinator. We want peace. We want cooperation. We want to be part of the galactic community as equals, not as conquerors or tyrants. The SDI was never meant to be revealed. It was insurance, a final defense in case the universe proved more hostile than we hoped. She gestured to the tactical display showing the disabled Crethon fleet. Look at what we did. We did not destroy them. We did not kill them. We simply stopped them. The quantum suppression technology could have been used decades ago to expand human territory, to force other species into submission, to carve out an empire. We chose not to. We locked it away and hoped we would never need it. The Crethon gave us no choice but to defend ourselves, and even then, we chose a defense that preserved life. The assembly chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the Torvan ambassador spoke with what sounded like cautious optimism in its modulated tones. If humanity is truly committed to peace, perhaps this technology could serve a greater purpose. The quantum suppression system could be used for peacekeeping operations. Aggressive empires could be stopped without bloodshed. Wars could be prevented by making warfare itself impossible. Rebecca had hoped someone would suggest this. She nodded slowly. Humanity is willing to share the quantum suppression technology with the Intergalactic Security Assembly, but only under strict conditions. First, it can only be deployed with unanimous approval of the Assembly Council. Second, it can only be used for defensive purposes to stop aggression, never to initiate conflict. Third, any species that violates these conditions will have the technology immediately revoked and will face immediate sanctions. The implications of this offer rippled through the chamber. Humanity was not trying to maintain a monopoly on their most powerful weapon. They were offering to share it, to make it a tool for collective security rather than individual dominance. This single gesture said more about humanity's intentions than any diplomatic speech could have conveyed. Over the next 6 months, the Intergalactic Security Assembly underwent a transformation. The quantum suppression technology was carefully analyzed, shared with the Assembly's most trusted scientists, and integrated into a new peacekeeping framework. 3 more aggressive empires that had been planning military expansions quietly abandoned their plans when they learned what had happened to the Crethon fleet. Border disputes that had simmered for decades were suddenly resolved through negotiation rather than force. Galactic warfare did not disappear entirely, but it decreased by 73% in the first year after humanity revealed the SDI. Species that had relied on military intimidation found themselves suddenly unable to threaten their neighbors. The balance of power shifted from those with the biggest fleets to those with the most persuasive arguments and the most valuable trade. Relationships, humanity's role in galactic politics changed dramatically as well. They were no longer viewed as peaceful but weak. Instead, they were recognized as peaceful by choice, which was far more intimidating. Other species understood that humanity possessed the capability for overwhelming violence, but chose restraint instead. That choice made them more trustworthy as mediators, more effective as peacekeepers, and more respected as leaders. Admiral Chen retired from active service 1 year after the Crethon incident. At his farewell ceremony, he was asked what he thought about humanity's new role in galactic affairs. His answer was simple but profound. We learned something during our thousands of years of warfare on Earth. The strongest warrior is not the one who wins every fight. The strongest warrior is the one who prevents fights from happening in the first place. We tried to teach the galaxy that lesson peacefully. When that did not work, we showed them what we are capable of, then immediately offered to help them build a better system. That is what strength really means. Ambassador Rebecca Stone continued her work at the Intergalactic Security Assembly, now serving as the chief mediator for the new peacekeeping initiative. She often thought about the day the Crethon fleet had entered human territory, confident and aggressive, expecting an easy victory. She thought about how close humanity had come to revealing their true capabilities, and how fortunate it was that they had been able to do so without killing anyone. The Strategic Defense Initiative returned to its dormant state, the 7 facilities resealing their vaults and powering down their quantum suppression systems. The technology remained available, ready to be activated again if necessary, but humanity hoped that would never happen. They had proven their point. They had shown the galaxy that peace was not weakness, and restraint was not inability. They had rewritten the rules of interstellar warfare by making warfare itself optional, rather than inevitable. And perhaps most importantly, humanity had proven to themselves that they had truly left their violent past behind. When faced with an existential threat, when given every justification to unleash devastating violence, they had chosen a weapon that did not kill. They had chosen to disable rather than destroy, to stop rather than slaughter. It was the choice that defined who they had become and who they would continue to be. The galaxy had forecast humanity's defeat in hours. Humanity had ended the war in minutes. But the real victory was not in how quickly they won, but in how they chose to win. They had shown strength through restraint, power through mercy, and dominance through the choice to not dominate. And in doing so, they had fundamentally changed what it meant to be strong in a universe that had too long equated strength with destruction. The silence that had shattered the Crethon Empire echoed through galactic history for generations. It became a lesson, a warning, and ultimately a promise. Humanity would defend itself when necessary, but it would do so in a way that preserved life and created opportunities for peace. That was the true power of the Strategic Defense Initiative, not in what it could do, but in what humanity chose not to do with it. And so the galaxy learned to coexist with a species that had been forged in the fires of endless warfare, tempered by the wisdom of peace and armed with weapons that made war itself impossible. Humanity had proven that the most dangerous species in the universe was not the one that could destroy the most efficiently, but the one that could choose not to destroy at all. The lesson was simple. Underestimate humanity's restraint at your peril, for beneath that restraint lay capabilities,